omega-3s. So let's talk about the PUFAs that all these different organizations recommend that we should eat. The seed oils, the sunflower seeds, soybean oil, canola, safflower, all of those are very high in omega-6s. And omega-6s, we need them, but we need them in about a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 ratio with omega-3s, the ones that we're getting from the fish. In this country, it's more like 20-to-1, 25-to-1, because it's in every kind of processed food. It's at McDonald's, in the fryer, it's everywhere. And it's, you know, what we think is a healthy oil, so we're cooking with it at home, we're adding it to our salads, it's in the salad dressings because nobody's putting out the money to have olive oil. Well, the research shows that these are inflammatory oils because they're mostly omega-6s. And the way they're made, like we said, you can't really squeeze a piece of corn and get a lot of oil out of it. It has to take a lot of chemicals, hexane, it takes a lot of heat. And when you do all this in a big industrial setting, you're damaging whatever oil is in there because of the heat and the processing. And then you have the hexane, so you need to get rid of that. And so more heat, steam sterilization, and then it's rancid at this point. So they'll deodorize it. And in the end, it looks yellow and it has no smell or taste, and we think it's a good thing. But it's very damaging, and this would be the oil that's leading to heart disease. So if you've been eating it, you want to stop eating it because your cells are made with oils, and it wants good fats, it wants good oils. And if all you bring are junk materials, it's going to do what it can. You know, your cells are constantly turning over. And you know, if you think of it that if your red blood cells are turning over every 90 days, then when the new ones come, they're being made out of something, and they have to be made with nutrients and the raw materials. So what are the raw materials that you're giving your body to make new cells with? And if it's from the junk oils, then you're going to have cells that don't work that great. And that's how we start to have problems like leaky gut, where our cells aren't working properly, things are allowed in and out that shouldn't be, so we start to have food sensitivities and yeast problems and things like that, as well as inflammation. And if you remember back before, we talked about inflammation is kind of that underlying cause that's under the iceberg for all of our chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure. So if we're doing anything to make ourselves inflamed, then we're at risk for those peaks of the iceberg. And this would be one big thing you can do, is pull out these omega-6 seed oils that are industrially processed, and that will bring down inflammation. On the other hand, if you take cod liver oil, it's anti-inflammatory. So if you have joint pain, if you have mood issues, that's what cod liver oil does for you. That's what the omega-3s do for you. It's anti-inflammatory. So it's the opposite of these seed oils. So when you're thinking about fat, you know, do you tend to think, well, if I eat fat, then I'm going to get fat? I mean, that just kind of, it seems common knowledge because they're the same word, right? So what we need to know is that it's the carbs that turn into fat. And everything that we've talked about up to this point was to show you how all of these processed foods and the grains that they're made of and the sugar, it's turning into sugar in our bodies into glucose as soon as we eat it. And when there's too much glucose floating around, your body has three choices. It can burn it for fuel, it can store it as glycogen for later, which there's not that much room for storage, so most of it, because we've eaten too much, gets turned into fat. And those are the three choices. So what doesn't get put into cells or used for energy or stored, it gets converted into fat. So that's what triglycerides are. And has anybody had their blood work done in the last year? And did you ask for a copy? Because you should be keeping copies at home, because now you want to know, how are my numbers running? Because they might not tell you till it's too late, you know, that some of your numbers are heading in the wrong direction, and then you go a year later and like, oh, now you're diabetic. It's like, this would been good to know, like, you know, the last 5 years I've been coming here, that I was going up, 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 instead of like, you're in the normal range, you're in the normal range. The normal range is too high for glucose, so you want to be lower, like 65, 75, you know, maybe 80, 85. But once you leave 85 and start going up to 90, 95 for your glucose fasting, you're heading in the wrong direction. And you may not get a word about it until you're into the pre-diabetes stage. And so you need to ask for your copies of your lab reports, because this is information that you can take and do something with. If your glucose is high, you need to cut back on the carbs. And mostly I'm talking about sugar first and grains second. And the same for weight. Until your weight is where you want it to be, until your sugar is where you want it to be, it's got to be about getting the carbs down. And then you can start adding back in and seeing where's your sweet spot. It's different for everybody. Some people who have diabetes may need to stay extremely low, like 20 grams a day, which is very low, and that's going to be coming from all vegetables and a little bit of berries and fruit maybe. And other people can tolerate 5 or 6 times that amount. So everybody's an individual, but until you figure it out for yourself, and you got to listen to your keys. If your blood sugar is too high, and if your weight is too high, if you're not feeling, your blood sugar is stable during the day, that you're having cravings, you're having, burnout in the afternoon where you got to run for candy or something to get your blood sugar up, you have a blood sugar problem. So eating the way we've been talking about, with protein, fat, and the good carbs from mostly vegetables, that's how you balance your blood sugar. And that will give you the energy you need for the day. So I want to invite my friends, the cooks, up here to tell their story, because they've been doing this. It'll be coming up on a year in January. And sometimes it just helps to know that I'm not the only crazy person telling you some of this stuff. So please come to my left. Do you want me to ask you questions, or you want to just go for it?
Go for it.
Well, I want to start with, Kim. Maybe if you read my newsletter, I wrote her story up a little bit ago. So Kim, tell me about, 20 years ago, tell me about your health.
Kind of crabby, tired, stressed out, kids running around, all that. Not real healthy. Candy, lots of candy.
Lots of candy,
Lots
bad
of chocolate.
moods, stress, and triglycerides were a problem.
Yeah, they were over 750.
Her triglycerides were 750, and if you know triglyceride numbers, you want to be below 100. Maybe 150, but never, ever 700. Mm-hmm. So for years, her doctor tried to get her to lower it by what?
Antidepressants.
What kind of diet?
Oh, low fat. Low fat. Yeah, low fat.
So low-fat diet and antidepressants didn't fix you?
No. Well, I didn't do the antidepressants.
Okay, yeah, okay, good. So then, of course, you came to class. You wouldn't be up here if it didn't fix, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So now your triglycerides, cholesterol, all that. Do you remember?
No, 300?
No?
What are they? She knows.
She doesn't even know her own blood work.
What is my blood work?
Everything is
I forgot.
completely normal.
Yes, okay.
And your triglycerides are just in the 100s, more
Are
like,
they in the 180?
just right over 150. So
Sorry.
that's quite good. And you lost some weight,
Yeah, almost 20.
20 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bill came along and was just kind of quiet the whole time, and I didn't really know if he was doing it or not doing it, coming, not coming. I wasn't sure. And then she's like, you really ought to get Bill's story. So I would like to get Bill's story. So what's changed? Tell me, before what you were doing, and what's it like now?
Well, before I ate whatever I
Focus.
wanted, whenever I wanted, and I was very happy. I was around 280.
No, it wasn't. You weren't happy.
No, I was okay.
You thought he was happy.
Had no energy, didn't want to do anything ever. Get home from work, sit down, watch TV, eat. And then we started doing the diet, and as the pounds started to come off, the energy goes up, and now you can exercise. You can get out and really get things going with the energy you get from eating the right foods. And so I'm down to about 45, 50 pounds.
Woo!
And, going. I can jog,
Yeah.
do a 5K now without any real problem.
He's fun. He's fun to be around.
So it's
All right, that's enough of that.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Yeah, he's fun. That's a bonus.
So, tell me, and you're in a better mood, so there's a bonus. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you eat? What's the typical breakfast, lunch, dinner?
I eat breakfast. I usually have a smoothie, a green smoothie, with all of the proteins and cod liver oil and the greens and the spirulina and and eggs or bacon, depending on the day. But I generally eat a green smoothie for breakfast and hard-boiled eggs.
Lunch?
Lunch is usually a salad big salad with spinach and greens and eggs and nuts and meat, no cheese usually. I make my own salad dressings with olive oil and mustard and vinegar.
And what's dinner?
Dinner is usually
Fish or chicken.
fish or chicken usually. So we buy our beef, from a farmer. So we have beef quite a bit.
Okay.
Vegetables.
Sweet potato.
I used to eat bread 3 or 4 times a day. Cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, bread at every dinner, milk every meal. And I think that the bread and the milk is really where I got my weight loss. I don't not eat it ever, but seldom.
And he does, his snoring is like
Yeah.
gone.
If I have
For
a
the
big
most
glass of
part.
milk, then I get a lot of elbows at night from snoring.
Yeah. All right, good job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So about 50 pounds, about 20 plus pounds. Triglycerides are down, energy's up, moods are stable. I mean, come on. If you haven't gotten on the bandwagon, why not? This is not hard to do. And this is their 4th class, and I think the food is very satisfying, and as you start to allow yourself, to experiment a little and try a new recipe, pick up a recipe book. I have a new one that I bought. I only bought 1 copy because I want to make sure it was good, and it's called Paleo Comfort Foods, and so whoever gets back there first, you can get it, but otherwise you can get it on Amazon. Oh, it's gone. It's on Amazon.com, Paleo Comfort Foods. It's a new book, and it doesn't have the grains in it, so it's going to give you some new ideas, good pictures. So why? We need fat. We need it for energy. You can see that these guys feel like they have the energy they need because they're eating real food. They're eating protein at every meal. They're eating eggs. They're eating bacon. They're eating avocados and salads and vegetables at every meal. So that's where the energy comes from. It comes from the real food. The stuff that takes your energy away comes out of a box usually, and it has ingredient list, a mile long. So the fat is used to make cell membranes. We mentioned that. It's used to make hormones. It slows down so you feel full longer. If you're eating carbs at breakfast, like cereal and toast and bagels, or nothing in coffee, you're going to crash and you're going to be looking for something 2 hours later. It's the bacon and eggs, the organic sausage, the green smoothie with protein. That keeps you a couple of hours where you're not thinking about food. It's not consuming you. You start to have control over things that you thought you could never control, which is your eating. Some people it's a bigger issue. Other people it's not, but for everybody, you can't get control until you get the breakfast down first, and then adding, lunch and dinner, making that good. So, there's studies that show that people who eat oatmeal will end up eating more that day than people who ate an omelet. We have, just studies that people who eat nuts lose weight, people who eat eggs lose weight. There's lots of studies that even comparing low fat to low carb, and the people who are eating low carb diets lose more weight and have better cardiovascular profiles too. We need fat to absorb the 4 vitamins, A, E, D, and K. So somebody wrote me, and it was in my newsletter yesterday, that they're on a diet that's very low fat, and now they're losing their hair and they're wondering if it's connected. Well, probably. You need fat for one thing, and if you're not absorbing your A, E, D, and K, that starts to set off a whole cascade of other things that those are needed for. You need D to build healthy bones, and then there's a connection with magnesium. So we need it to have healthy skin and hair. And your brain is mostly fat. It's 60% fat. So if you want to have good cognitive skills into old age, eat fat. We don't want a shriveled up old brain. We don't want shriveled up cells. We don't want cells made with junk oils. So we want good bones, and that is from fat. It also protects your heart. It raises your HDL. If you need to raise your HDL, you need to eat butter. You need to eat coconut oil. And it carries the micronutrients in your body. It's very satisfying. If you're on a low-fat diet, you're always hungry. You're always looking for the next thing. You're always thinking and dreaming about food, and you can't wait to get off the diet because it's so unsatisfying. And maybe you lose, 50 pounds on a Weight Watchers diet, but usually you gain it back because your metabolism is slowed down and your body's starving for nutrients. So when you come off the diet and you start eating the things that your body wants, the weight comes back because you've ruined your metabolism. So fix your metabolism by eating 3 meals a day that are balanced with the protein, fat, and vegetables. So you can eat olives, avocados, nuts, and seeds, but a little caution on the nuts. It's not open season on that big bag of nuts from Trader Joe's, because you will gain weight and you will get too much of a good thing. So maybe portion it out. Like a 1/4 cup is a serving. Maybe if that's your nut thing once or twice a day, that's enough. And then put it away. Even Trader Joe's sells like pre-portioned little baggies of almonds, so you don't even have to think about it. And I think the price is like pennies apart. So we want to include healthy natural fat in every meal. If you want to measure it out, what am I talking about? I'm talking about like a tablespoon, 2 to 3 teaspoons at every meal would be fine. So at butter, that's my favorite thing. At breakfast, you cook your eggs in butter or coconut oil. Or you can saute in some organic sausage. Or maybe you have some leftover broccoli or sweet potatoes, you throw them in the pan so that you get it all going. And if it sounds strange and foreign to throw vegetables in there, it's like a vegetable omelet, really. You just start doing it, and what you think is strange today becomes the thing that you are craving tomorrow. Salad dressings need oil, but you need the good oil. So that's why I want you to make your own salad dressing with good olive oil. There's different kinds of olive oil. If you look in the store, the thing you want is the extra virgin olive oil. That's the first pressing of the olives. That's the best stuff. And then there's virgin olive oil, and then there's pure olive oil. And there's just the first pressing goes here, that costs the most money. Then the next pressing, and then the pure stuff, they're probably using, pits and chemicals and trying to get more good stuff out of it. But it's not as beneficial as extra virgin. So when possible, that's what you want to buy. I have a recipe in the book for making your own mayonnaise, which it takes so little time, you should just try it. It's mayonnaise and eggs. It's olive oil and eggs, and you whip it slowly. It works better just doing it by hand or adding it very slowly if you're doing it in a blender. This would be one case where you might like the taste better if you use a little bit lesser quality olive oil, because extra virgin has a really strong taste, and when you're using that for your mayonnaise, you might not like it. The first time my first batch of mayonnaise was a disaster. I put it in the Vitamix and just whirled away, and it never became mayonnaise. And so then I read a few people, and I decided to use the wire whisk and do it real slowly, slowly adding the oil to the eggs, and it turned out beautifully, and it looked like mayonnaise and tasted like mayonnaise, but I used pure olive oil from Trader Joe's, and I think the taste was better. So that's my trade-off there. So we're going to make a salad dressing. I'm going to have the lovely Kelsey Yo come up and help me make salad dressing. It's in your recipe books. It is Italian dressing. And Kelsey, you could come right over here. I'm having her come because I have one hand, and I already broke a jar of coconut milk out on the front parking lot. So if you want, you have to go lick the tire of my car or the back of my sweater. And so what I use is Pampered Chef. You want to take the lid off and show them how it works. Take the whole thing off. She's never used this before. I'm just throwing her up here.
Did I just break it?
Well, I don't know. Oh, no. Here, you hold this, and I'll hold this. See, you didn't break it. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Like, oh my gosh, I'll buy you a new one.
Okay, here you go. Can't give this girl anything. It has the increments on the side and it tells you what to add, so you don't need a recipe card. So the recipe I wrote down is actually from the side of the jar. So you add it, the first, let's see, the Italian dressing is over here, and it has a little line like fill up to the bottom line with vinegar. So why don't you go ahead and do that? And this is balsamic vinegar, and this is extra virgin olive oil. So we'll just add them. Can you see the ingredients there? And it's also on this card too. So just, I think I already measured it. It's 2 to 1. The olive oil is a cup, and the vinegar is a half a cup.
You did a really good job.
Well, at least I didn't pour it in the parking lot. Just pour the whole thing in. It's all good. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of salt.
Do you want the salt first?
It doesn't matter. It's all going the same place. And a 1/4 teaspoon onion powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of basil, and a half a teaspoon of oregano, and then 2 cloves of garlic, which she's going to crush. So this will be our next fun thing. Okay, so yeah, just have one of those for the salt. I haven't measured it, but yeah, the whole thing is probably good.